Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
The sun is rising, the sky is blue. Good morning, grand risings, let's see what's new. It's that time of day for Sonia and crew. Good morning, grand risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton.
Good morning, Grand Risings, you beautiful, glorious people. It is exactly 9 a.m. GMT on Monday, the 20th of January, 2025, and it is D-Day all around the world. What an auspicious day. It is astonishing what is going on today. Good morning to you all, Windle and Abster and Merv and Morrigan and Shalini and Jacqueline and Shug and Crone and Teresa and Robert, and who is Health Freedom, and Marcus and our wonderful jingle man, and JT and Catherine, and of course our two glorious mods, Soul Sound and Crazy Bunny. How are you all, you beautiful people? What a phenomenal day we have in store for us. I am so glad to be alive at this point in our history. It's so-called Blue Monday today, said to be the most depressing day of the year. Let me tell you, this idea was thought up by a travel company 20 years ago in order to sell holidays. They figured people would be battling with post-Christmas blues and would need a boost. Yes, people, these days are really that cynical, but it won't be blue around here. Oh no. So what is coming up on our show today? As I say, it's D-Day, always round. We'll be joined by Raja Miah. He's been threatened, attacked, ostracized, and he still won't be quiet about those grooming gangs. And I'll also be talking to midwife and speaker Andrew Golden on the problems with the Lucy Letby convictions. Then, of course, we'll be talking about Trump Inauguration. The trial for Axel Rudakubana starts today. He, of course, is accused of murdering 3 young girls in Southport, England last summer. We also have WEF starting today in Davos. Then there is the reversal of the TikTok ban. There's lots of stuff going on there, and we're going to unpack it. And also in court is Ricky Jones, the British councillor, and a video of him went viral. And then there is, I want to do a deep dive later on in the show about the strange death of Ellen show producer Stephen Boss Twitch. Then I'll be looking at the Scottish child abuse inquiry and how it has certainly failed at least one of its survivors. All the usual good stuff, viewer emails and live chat. In fact, the liveliest of live chats. We do news differently around here. And you know why? Because someone had to. That's right. That's right. Hello and welcome to you all, oldies and newbies alike. Hello, James Dunn. Said, I'm like a dog with a bone. Thank you. He loves Rise. No, it's not Rise. Rise was the first breakfast show I created. Look at that. He loves Wake Up. And actually, it doesn't matter whether it's Rise or Wake Up. It's all me, right? It's all my shows. Thank you for being here. Very much appreciate it. The Countess St. Germain says, Soniatopia. Kind of like that. And John from Coventry gives us an update on his employment situation. On Friday, he was going for a job interview. He said, interview went very well, and I've declined the job offer because my gut told me not to take it, even though I stand on the cusp of redundancy. I am trusting the universe right now, and that is the best thing to trust, John. Really, I do believe you'll be put on the right path. Don't you worry about that. And Lorraine had left a comment in our comments on Friday's video saying, my son is an electrician and has started to do solar panels. You would not believe the hoops they've had to jump through to get the accreditation to do it. It has cost thousands of pounds so far. And so much paperwork is shocking. They do not want independent people doing this. That's right. Big government initiatives with big government contracts. And Lorraine, it sounds like your son ain't going to be one of them. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. Independence is the way, people. And Lorraine goes on to say, and now the energy companies are saying that they won't accept energy back into the grid unless your panels, etc., are supplied through them. It's a crock. It's a scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. It sounds gangsterish. He said in principle that if energy is going back into the grid, then it becomes cheaper for them, but they won't pass the savings to the customers. It's complicated. I should get him talking to Sonia. Yes, you should, Lorraine. Tell him to contact me. Absolutely. And well, what can I say? Grand risings, everyone. What a day. What an auspicious day. Trump inauguration, of course. Anybody see his speech? I mean, you have to laugh. I mean, he certainly doesn't hold back, does he? And honestly, whether you hate him or loathe him, the fact is that he has engendered some incredible loyalty. His followers adore him. And you don't see that around a Keir Starmer, do you? No, you don't. You definitely don't. So let's talk a little bit about Trump, shall we? Let's talk a bit about Trump. I want to look at his official photo. Let me just do some little moving around here a second. Let me add that to the stage. There's Trump's official photo. When I saw it, I had to laugh because he's obviously sending a very clear message. Now, bear in mind, that official portrait will be hanging in law enforcement offices all around the US. So it's almost like he's staring down at them, like, you behave, you do this or else, right? So, yes, his inauguration, he'll be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States, which also makes him, of course, the commander-in-chief. Some say this should be for the third time and that he was cheated at the last election. In fact, rather a lot of people say that. They do. So what do you think of the official portrait, peeps? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Obviously, there's been quite a lot of post-production work done on it. It's sending a message. And it's sending a message which kind of says, I'm looking at you with my steely, determined eyes. And, you know, when people kind of do that, it's almost like, a bit suspicious of you. It's that kind of thing, right? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? Mugshot says, Jacqueline, is it based on his mugshot? I kind of think it is. I think it is. I would say Trump is beginning his third term, says Shug. Yanks can only do 2 terms, says Blue Eyes. Got you. Yes, I hear you. So that's why yes, I got you. That's his arrest photo. Yes, but what they've done obviously is they've worked it and they've touched it up to a certain degree and yeah, obey or else. Too much makeup as usual, says Chris. You're not talking about me, are you, Chris? You're talking about Trump, aren't you? Because, I mean, it is a little bit of a pity, really, that he always looks a bit orange. I do think that's a little bit of a pity, but he's so powerful, nobody around him is going to tell him. So today, he's expected to sign some 200 executive orders, his first day. And now we're going to see, really, aren't we, whether Trump is New World Order with bells on or not. And it's going to be interesting. I know people are very, very torn. I don't think there's much. Thank you, Chris. I don't think there's much that we can do other than sit and wait at this stage. I mean, what else is there, right? I really am enjoying some of the executive orders. Absolutely. Some of his executive orders, by the way, they're going to be looking at border security, energy, cost of living reductions, and ending DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the executive orders I have in front of me, I'm going to read it. The executive order establishes government-wide the biological reality of 2 sexes and clearly defines male and female. All radical gender ideology, guidance, communication, policies, and forms are removed. Agencies will cease pretending that men can be women and women can be men when enforcing laws that protect against sex discrimination. Woman means an adult human female. Now, I don't care what anybody says, but the person who made all that possible, who started all that, was Posey Parker. Now, I've had my criticisms of Posey, certainly her support of Israel. I don't like that. But when it comes to this issue, adult human female, there is none like Posey Parker. Kelly J. Keane, she's done an exemplary job on the whole gender thing. And I really kind of wish she'd have stayed at this, like a single issue scenario, because that's when she's at her most formidable. And the executive order directs that government identification like passports and personal records will reflect biological reality and not self-assessed gender identity. It's a phenomenal executive order. It is a phenomenal executive order. Like, that is incredible. And lots of incredible people, as I say, have contributed to that. There's like Sal Grover, who did the Tickle versus Giggle lawsuit, and now she's reversed it, and now it's Giggle versus Tickle. And there's lots of people all the way around Maya Forstater, loads of people who have come together to make this a reality and create a change. Create a change, yes. Cravo said, I hear Trump wants total immunity for all cops. Wait, what? I don't know about that. Where did you find the EA for DEI? I was sent it. I was sent it by a contact. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Sounds like he's talking the talk, says Teresa. Sally's great too. All amazing women. Yes, Rachel, they are. They have been absolutely phenomenal, and more power to their elbow. Absolutely. Trump is scheduled to visit Los Angeles on Friday in the wake, obviously, of the devastating wildfires which tore through the Pacific Palisades and beyond, Malibu, etc. Anybody see the protesters next to the Lincoln Memorial yesterday? I was like, are they planning an insurrection? What is going on here? Like huge crowds, huge crowds. One of my friends pointed out to me that it was huge crowds and not one single American flag inside. The thing about Trump is that he appears on the surface absolutely to put America first. We will see. We will see, because we've seen this before, haven't we? Where people, but I think Trump is different in that respect, because there is no denying that our politicians in the UK do not put the UK first, do not put England first. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, we've seen that on last week when they made that 100-year pact between the UK and the Ukraine. That is not a democratic decision. That's not what people want. And we also know, of course, that Starmer has very famously said that he prefers Davos, which is obviously where WEF is, to Westminster, which is where the British Parliament is seated. And we also know that a phenomenal proportion of MPs from all parties are kind of lost to the Israeli lobby groups, from whom they receive much money and much financial incentive. So yes, very few politicians actually put their countries first. But if one does, I think most people would say that would be Donald Trump. Certainly Joe Biden didn't. Certainly Joe Biden didn't. So it's going to be a big day, massive day, huge day. And I just think the whole series of events that are taking place today are really interesting, really interesting. Obviously, there was a whole issue with TikTok yesterday, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Vape says Starmer is a cuck. He is. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And of course, at the inauguration today, Trump is making sure that the technocrats, the tech titans are front and center of the inauguration. I think that in itself is a massive message. He's got Jeff Bezos, obviously the Amazon founder, and also now the proprietor of the Washington Post. There's going to be Elon Musk, who has become Trump's kind of like perpetual side buddy. Then you've got Mark Zuckerberg, who's going to be there, Sam Altman, who's one of the biggest names in AI, and Shou Chew, who's the chief executive of TikTok, will be there. And America and the Supreme Court is still saying that TikTok has to be sold to America. It cannot be in Chinese hands. And as I say, we're going to be talking about that shortly. Okay. And I just think it's really interesting. And as our mod, Crazy Bunny, pointed out, Trump used footage from Full Metal Jacket to promote how the army should be. The guy shoots himself in it because he gets bullied. A bit weird, no? Just a smidge weird there, Crazy Bunny, just a smidge weird. And of course, we are concerned when we hear things like this, that Bill Gates has said he is excited to be working with Trump. Zuckerberg has said he is excited to be working with Trump. Netanyahu says he is excited to be working with Trump. And Trump will speak at Davos WEF meeting after his inauguration. That's what we're currently being told. He will work with Larry Fink on economic policy. This is what we're being told. How true this is or not, we will see. We will see. And just join chat after doing school run. Grand risings, everyone, says Jen. Tech, AI. Oh, let me get that comment. Now, what is that saying? What are you saying, Katie? AI is the only thing that worries me about Trump. Otherwise, I think he'll be great. Loved how Starmlier said it was the wish of the United Kingdom. He's always trying to talk on behalf of us, Deborah, and he doesn't, right? What did he get? 17% of the votes, for God's sake. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. He is a ridiculous man. So, yes, the inauguration today. Let us see how it all pans out. You know, the thing is, this tells you something, I think. I think this tells you rather a lot, actually. And that is many people in the UK get more excited about the inauguration of the American presidents than they do about British prime ministers being put into number 10. Don't you think that's curious? I think that's curious. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Bill Gates says he is pleased to be working with Trump, Melvin. So we all have big concerns because it would be awful if it's the end of Biden with that lot and then the beginning of Trump with that lot. Who knows where it's going to go? Now, look, we also, just to look at both sides, it is actually important that Trump talks to all people, all manner of people. Part of the problem that you have in politics is that people aren't willing to actually debate and they just want to send in the bombs, right? So, but he is willing to talk to all people, and we have to look at that. Is it a case that he's talking to Bill Gates because ultimately he believes it will benefit the US? And the thing is, oftentimes if it benefits the US, it benefits the rest of the Western world. We shall see. Gates is not good news ever, says Stephen. No, he's not. Prison for Gates. Trump doesn't like Bill Gates, says my friend JJ. How do you know what? Adatona. I always call you by your surname, don't I, JJ? But when they lie and talk, says Delroy. No, not Kill Bill. I think we're getting a theme, a general theme in the comments right now. And a warning. Let's move on. Obviously, on Friday, we'll be reporting much more on the first few days of the Trump presidency. But as I say, D-Day, very important day. And let us move on. And a warning from the British Attorney General. This is very rare. This is extremely rare. This is a media advisory notice. The trial of Axel Rudakubana. Axel Rudakubana, of course, is accused of murdering 3 girls in Southport, England last July. And I just think it's very interesting that the Attorney General's office, which is the highest legal office in the land, has put out a notice. They don't do that for all criminal cases. And most journalists know that they have to be incredibly careful commenting on criminal cases. And I advise you likewise in the comments, because it's a live case. And some people are such idiots on social media. It's as if they want to throw the trial. It's as if they want to. One of the things that I'm hearing is to do with the whole issue of Rudakubana being mentally ill. And that will obviously, they're obviously going to be dealing with that in court. Because that's something that's often said, isn't it? But we have to be incredibly careful. Axel Rudakubana, of course, is 18 years old. He's due to stand trial at Liverpool Crown Court. And as I say, that starts today. But let me just read you some of this Attorney General warnings. I do think it's interesting. Axel Rudakubana has been charged with 16 offences, including the murder of 3 young girls, the attempted murder of 10 other people, including 8 children, as well as the production of ricin and possession of an Al-Qaeda training manual. The criminal trial commences on 20th of January at Liverpool Crown Court and is expected to last from 4 to 6 weeks. While proceedings are active, the Attorney General is reminding editors, publishers, and social media users that fair and accurate reporting of legal proceedings held in public in good faith is permitted. However, you may be in risk of being in contempt of court if you publish material or comment online that is inaccurate, unfair, or involves discussion or commentary which could influence the jury's deliberations. This includes anything that asserts or assumes expressly or implicitly the guilt of Axel Rudakubana. This is due to the risk of potentially jeopardizing the criminal trial. They just don't put out those warnings as a rule, right? Because think about how many criminal trials take place around the UK every day. So it's interesting they've done that, obviously. And obviously all the things that followed that. And again, we're going to have to be careful. Morrigan is going to have to learn sign language. That's what's going to happen. Mel said, still don't know much about the victims or hear from their families and friends, just saying, we will over the next few weeks, Mel. That's what's going to happen. So, but yes, interesting. Interesting. And just the usual obfuscations. Well, that is the reality show. That is what they do. That is exactly what they do. But I just want to draw your attention to that because I just think it's always interesting when government do something a little bit different. Always interesting. Right. It is the first day of WEF today. First day of WEF. Bet you're that excited. World Economic Forum, first day in Davos. The Royals are sending one of the few members who has not been caught being friends with pedos. Yes, that's right. They are sending Princess Beatrice to join Rachel Reeves, Rachel from Accounts, who has lied her way into being Chancellor of the British Exchequer. Princess Beatrice will join, as I say, Rachel Reeves, Angela Merkel, and the usual stuff, delegates from big business, governments, society, academia, media. They'll be at the ski resort in Zurich near Switzerland. And I think it's interesting because Princess Beatrice being involved, it really absolutely signals front and center of the royal family when it comes to the Build Back Better Brigade. That's right. No way, geez, we're doomed, says Morrigan. That's the way it goes, yo. That's the way it goes, yo. And the meeting is the 55th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. They say they will convene the foremost leaders from government, business, and civil societies. Yes, we've already done that. And the theme is collaboration for the intelligent age. How scared are we already? How scared are we already? Hey? Tell me, how scared are we already? In addition, a special work stream on leadership in complexity will be embedded in the meeting to look at the necessary toolkit to navigate this fast evolving environment. Okay, so it's first impressions today will be of Inauguration Day. So that's going to be interesting. What's going on there? What is that about? Very little we've got to work with at this moment in time, but you know, we have no idea how dumb we actually are. They're all going skiing. Oh, down with the monarchy, says Christine. I couldn't agree more. Abolish the monarchy. Absolute waste of our money, of our space. They take a running jump, says Jan. People are not impressed. People are not impressed. Trump will ruin it for the WEF, says Jan. But how interesting, everything is just all on the same day. It's all lining up on the same day, isn't it? Now, some people would say, well, this is like one of the first major days back after Christmas. This is when the judiciary return, all that sort of stuff. Randy, they do. Prostitutes have great days in Davos these days. That's a fact. That is an evidential fact. I like skiing and I could go. My rally cry, abolish the monarchy, says Teresa. Even the planets are lining up. They are indeed. They are indeed. After all that heavy energy over Christmas, we're getting into a different place now, right? Intelligence is fleeting. Wisdom is everlasting. Absolutely, Cavan, it is. £50 says William won't be king, says Simon. Is it the 28th that quite a few planets line up this month? I don't know. I'm not sure, but possibly. I don't know. Best I don't say that. Simpson's predictions for Charlie Sausage Fingers. Oh, really? Is that right? What do we replace monarchy with, chat? Windle, why do we have to replace it with anything? I know you're addressing that to the chat. Why do we have to replace it with anything? Why don't we don't need to have a president and we don't need to have a monarchy, right? That's what I think. That's exactly what I think. And yes, so we shall see. We shall see what's going to come out this week. But for anybody who doesn't know, this is one of those big overreaching kind of like claims to be authoritarian in its own right organizations. It's all about stakeholder capitalism. And don't forget, there are a whole kind of retinue of organizations like this, Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg. They all get together. And they decide our fate. Not mine, though, and not yours, because we're free thinkers. Yes, we are. We are independent, free thinkers. But to a degree, yes, they guide our world. And it's very, very frustrating because so many people have bought into it. So many people. Joanna's caught alive. Excellent. We love that. We love that indeed. Okay, what else? What about this very weird banning of TikTok and then a reversal? Okay, what about that? What do we think about that? And so what happened was on Saturday, TikTok announced that that they were, due to a Supreme Court ruling, that they would be closing in America. Now, that's about 180 million users. And a lot of people make an awful lot of money and create their own fame and their own careers off of TikTok. And so that closed temporarily. And then there was a complete reversal. It's called the art of the deal, Finbar. I didn't know about the reversal. Yes. Seems a bit of a farce. But no, I tend to agree with Finbar. It is called the art of the deal to a certain degree. But here's the thing, is that on the surface of it, the whole idea was that the Americans couldn't trust the Chinese because they had all their data. that Chinese spyware was stealing Americans' data, posing a national security threat. What a load of rubbish. What a load of rubbish. If that was the case, we would be concerned about all social media, right? Because there are traitors, even if they're, Americans who are running the social media, there are traitors. And actually, one of the biggest social medias is not run by an American. It's run by Elon Musk, who is South African. But he's different, of course, in the eyes of America in some respects. But anyway, there was a reversal. And so what's happening now is that they're waiting for an American buyer. Do not be, because Trump is gathering all those technocrats around him. Do not be surprised if this is all part of the plan. I would not be so surprised if Elon Musk bought TikTok. Not at all. But many people, many people believe that really the reason for this is the proliferation on TikTok of what has been going on in the Middle East. That's what many people believe. Many people believe that because people have been rising up and screaming blue murder on TikTok about what has been happening in the Middle East, that is the reason that it closed down temporarily. But we shall see. I asked on X what you think the reason for it was. Paul said, leading the way for X to be banned in EU and the UK. Shalini, who was often in our comments, she might even be this morning, said, never into TikTok, to be fair. Interesting, though, that Chinese TikTok is very different to ours, though. It is much more censored, right? Anyway, have a great Sunday. Thank you. Thank you, Shalini. We're now on Monday. Yes, we are. Goldfinger said money, simple. And Dunehamer said, chaos is about to erupt on the streets of the USA. I sincerely hope not. I sincerely hope not. Ella May said, I think TikTok have too much data and the US want a slice of the pie. Also, it changed people's sentiments on Israel. I think there might be some truth there. I do. And around here, we're not biased. We're not biased. I'm politically homeless and I'm just interested in the truth. And the guests that I invite are just interested in the truth. And that's what we're about round here. And Worthy said, tiptoe totalitarianism. We know Starmer Blair want this freedom of anything under control. And that is the reality, isn't it? Is that social media opened up a whole new world for people where previously our news was being gatekept by legacy media, who had, the lion's share of the say about how our world was viewed. And then, of course, the advent of the internet and social media. And hey, my next door neighbor suddenly had a say that could go out to the rest of the world. And I think that's progress. I think that's progress, because that surely is the most democratic approach to our world. But of course, that wasn't what the lawmakers wanted. And that is why there are massive clampdowns and laws being enacted and attempted to be pushed through our own British Parliament right now to continue censoring us on social media. One of those, of course, was the Online Harms Bill, which has come into effect. And they did this on the basis of, we want to get rid of child abuse images online. Absolutely couldn't agree with you more. But here's the thing. They took down a whole platform yesterday. Are you now telling me that the technocrats cannot take child abuse imagery offline? Think about it. Of course they can. Of course they can. Right? You don't need laws against the people in order to take down child abuse images. You don't. They took down a whole damn platform, for goodness sake. Yes, they did. The WEF is just United Nations think tank for the corporation, says Melvin. The foundation run the whole show. Lisa said it's yet another smokescreen. Well, we shall see. We shall absolutely see. I want to welcome in my first guest. He's had a lot to say recently. I've been watching his videos with great fascination. Brilliant speaker. But this is a man who is burning with a deep sense of injustice. And that's my kind of guest. Let's welcome him to the stage. Let's bring him in. Here he is. Good morning, Raja Miah. How are you?
Sonia, thank you so much for making the time to speak with me. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. You are, it's phenomenal what you're doing at this moment in time. And I had previously, we follow each other on X. You've done a lot of sterling work for a very long period of time. You've been threatened. You've been ostracized. You've been attacked. People have really gone for you. And it's because of your work to do with the so-called grooming gangs. Now, I hate that particular expression. I only use it, Raja, because everybody knows what we're talking about when we use it, right? And that's the reason we use it. But we know it's so much more than that. But you have been doing a plethora of interviews. You've made some very serious allegations about the Labour Party. I want to dig in on that because these are very, very serious. But I want you, first of all, to give people some understanding about your background. Were you born in Oldham?
No, I was born in Bradford, interestingly. I'm the product of a second marriage. My father was sent off to fight in the Second World War. The tradition in my family was the eldest son had to go and serve. So he walked all the way to Calcutta, got on a boat, served in the Second World War, and the boat at the end of the war docked in Liverpool and told him to make his own way home. So in 1944, 1945, that wasn't as straightforward as perhaps it is now, Sonia. So that's how my family ended up here.
That might explain something about your character and personality straight away. Your father, I mean, clearly a lot of determination and a lot of anger. I think necessary anger. I think we need to have righteous anger. And you have. You went away for a period of time, didn't you? What did you go away to do?
I spent the best part of 20 years or so working on what we now know as counter-extremism work, community cohesion work. Ended up working for multiple prime ministers, secretaries of state, worked around the world, safeguarding our nation, I would say, Sonia, safeguarding our way of life, protecting children from being drawn into these extremist narratives where they ended up far too often with a suicide vest strapped to them, or, you know, blowing up things like the Manchester Arena. So that's what I went to do for a long time. In the end, I had enough of that world because our politicians don't take the time to understand, Sonia, the ramifications of their easily made decisions. So, for instance, when we were supporting young men to go off to Libya to fight Gaddafi, they didn't realize that these young men were going and fighting with the Al-Nusra Front, which is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. One leads to two, leads to three, and the arena, Manchester Arena blows up. So I had enough. My relationship had broken down. My mother was terminally ill. I had a baby daughter. And I thought I'd done enough, Sonia. I thought I've done as much as I could do. I came home, licked my wounds, raised my daughter the best way I can to make sure she knows who her father is, and see my mother off, and look after her towards the end of her life. So that's why I came back. And
you were presented with your MBE for your work, weren't you?
I was 30 years old, Sonia.
That's very young. That's very young indeed. Now, I'm a great critic about the establishment and about the awards system, for one example. And many times when people are given such awards, OBEs, MBEs, etc., they become kind of pawns of the establishment. But I can't say that's the case with you.
They've been trying to take it off me for the last 5 years.
Oh, what? Tell us. Who has?
Yeah. Oh, well, some of the establishment linked to the Labour Party trying to get me criminalised. I think the plan was if they could get me convicted, then they could take the honour off me. So, and they've been very forthright in stating that on social media. The target is the MBE because the MBE gives me legitimacy. I don't use it, Sonia. I went because my mother is a royalist. She put up with so much, raising us as a single parent. My dad died when we were children. All of us went on to work in public service in one way or another. And it was the proudest day of her life. So I know that's why I took it, if I'm honest with you. But now it comes in handy, Sonia, because it gives me an added level of legitimacy.
Well, the thing is that there's no doubt that in certain places, corridors of power, for example, it would certainly help you. There's no getting around that. Okay. And what I'm putting up the wrong word. This guy is a genuine working class hero. Let's talk about that, right? I come from a working class background, strong, solid working class background. And I obviously hate the way that the working class are often portrayed in the UK. And when you came back, I think this is interesting. That's when you realized that there was a real problem in your area. You talk about an offender who was running the local mosque.
Yes. A friend of mine, his wife contacted me completely out of the blue. And she said to me, Raja, the chairman of the local mosque is a convicted sex offender. I'm concerned about my children. Can you help? I didn't believe it, Sonia, because we've got so many safeguarding protocols in place now. So I just dropped an email to the local authority designated officer. It's called a LADO. It's a statutory role. Every council has one, to make sure these things don't happen. Everything went quiet. The mother then got an email back to the words of, yeah, we know, we don't care. And long story short, it ended up that this man was very politically connected, former Labour Party candidate, controlled a substantial amount of postal votes. I publicly campaigned, got rid of him, got threatened because I publicly campaigned, because we don't do that in the communities I come from. You know, those things are hushed over. And right is right and wrong is wrong, Sonia, and a man like that should not be in the mosque.
Bottom line, that's exactly what I said on the intro, because it's about truth, isn't it? It doesn't matter whether you're part of some demographic or another. In fact, you yourself, you're Muslim, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. People ask me, and I say, yeah, and ask me, how do I square it? And I'll tell you, I square it. I just try to be the best person I can, and I'll let my God judge me when I get there.
I hear that loud and clear. So some of the very serious allegations that you're making, they are very, very serious. You're saying essentially that the political party, and in particular Labour, and we're talking about the upper echelons, you even go so far as to name Keir Starmer, who has knowledge about these things. And you're talking about fiddling of votes, which is linked to essentially protecting predators in the community who have been raping these young girls. Is that accurate?
I mean, you've summarised it. But yeah, I think you can draw that correlation. What I'm saying is that in the communities I come from, postal votes are rigged. The elections are rigged through postal votes. Those who control the postal votes control the outcome of the election. The consequence of that is, particularly at a local level, at a council level, many of the councillors who get elected, not just in my town, but in Labour Party controlled towns across the country where there's an ethnic minority demographic, particularly Pakistani and Bangladeshi, which make up the main Muslim sort of communities in the United Kingdom. Particularly in that sense, the organised crime networks have got hold of the postal votes. They have their own candidates now endorsed. And of course, these candidates, once they're elected, are tasked with making sure that these people are taken care of. So for instance, and I quantify this by giving you clear examples, Sonia, and the reason why I have got as far as I've got is because I try and evidence what I share.
Right.
Yeah, and I will share you with what's took place in my hometown in Oldham. The leader of the council, this is the leader of the council, who's also the chair of the National Constitutional Committee of the Labour Party. So this is a powerful committee. Used to work for both Jim McMahon, the now Minister for State, I think he is, a local government minister, and also for Debbie Abrams, who's a chair of a select committee. That lady's name is Arud Shah. Arud Shah has direct links with organised crime in the town. She is the leader of the council. We removed her in one ward. They put her back in another ward, even though they knew of her underground links. And her criminal underground links include the getaway driver of the cop killer, Dale Cregan. So that's the Dale Cregan who killed 2 police officers, one of which is from Oldham.
I remember him.
Yeah, and so the leader of the council, Arud Shah, openly, brazenly hangs off his arm. The council now support this man as a community ambassador, even though, you know, his most recent, he's a career criminal, convicted heroin dealer, would never pass a DBS check.
Who is?
A man called Irish Imi, Mohammed Imran Ali,
right,
who goes to all the counts, helps campaign openly for the Labour Party.
And is it him you are saying is directly connected to the leader of the council?
Hangs off her arm openly.
And this is a known fact.
It is a known fact. The newspapers eventually ran with it. And you've got to understand how close Arud Shah is to power. She's also very close with the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, who for a long time was an MP in Oldham. You know, we had 3 MPs and Angela Rayner was one of them.
Right. You're in the lion's den. I mean, that is very tricky, the position that you found yourself in, because when you start telling on your own community, you will be subject to all manner of things. You'll be ostracized, as I said before, ostracized, threatened, attacked. What was the legal situation you had to deal with?
I had been arrested on 3 separate occasions by Greater Manchester Police. Each of the cases were fabricated against me. 2 cases made it to court, both collapsed in court. One was involving Arud Shah, the leader of the council at the time. She claimed I was a racist. I was a racist because I was objecting to the way in which the Gaza conflict, this is before last October, this is a couple of years ago even, how Islamists in the UK were exploiting it to recruit young people and turn them against the United Kingdom. That's my viewpoint from 15, 20 years of working in counter-extremism work, how these issues are exploited by extremists. I don't think anyone would dispute that, Sonia. They put 8 police officers, hammered down my door, dawn raided my house, arrested me, dragged me into court. And what happened there was the case collapsed because Arud Shah refused to give evidence. Now, she would have been torn apart if she had.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Has she ever sued you or attempted to sue you
So
through?
no, most recently, the council has attempted to take out an injunction against me. They failed. I responded to them. And the Labour Party last year sent me an email threatening to sue me. And interestingly, Sonia, not only did they threaten to sue me on behalf of Jim McMahon, the MP, but it was the client was the Labour Party and Jim McMahon. So it wasn't just McMahon on his own. The Labour Party have tried to sue me. I responded to them. I've heard nothing back because I challenged them. I said, I will see you in the High Court, essentially. But interestingly in that, or more worryingly in that, and I'll release the documents today, Sonia, I will do, the letters from the lawyers clearly attempt to blackmail me. They threaten me with the police, and if I back down, then the police won't get involved. And it's there in black and white. So the Labour Party, the party in power of government, in black and white, I've got the documents, I always have the documents, have essentially attempted to blackmail me.
Wow. That's, I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Of course, all of this has come up again because of Elon Musk. That's why this has all come. You sent him a thank you letter, and an open thank you letter. Let me just have a look at it. I and the people of my town owe you our gratitude. For 6 years, we have led the campaign for a public inquiry into the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of Oldham's children. To this day, not a single mainstream reporter or news agency has told the full story of what powerful politicians did to those of us who refused to turn a blind eye. And it goes on. But you are grateful to Elon Musk for what he did, right?
And isn't it a shame? Isn't it a national shame that it took someone from from America to come across and do this? And
I've thought about this, Raja. I thought about this quite a lot, and I wonder whether sometimes you have to be outside of a situation in order to be able to see it fully for what it is. But also, people are so compromised, aren't they, within our country to do with this issue as well? Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think, I look at this, and there's so many layers to this, Sonia, because once it unravels, then unravel it will. I think we're very close. The national inquiry will come, and they won't be able to cover it up as they've covered up other national inquiries, because there's too many of us campaigning on this issue, and I look at this, and fundamentally there's so many strands to this. There's the strand of course, what was done to these poor children and how the authorities failed them. There's the strand of the criminal underworld and the postal votes and the Muslim bloc vote, which is now, at one point I was called a conspiracy theorist. And yesterday, even Liz Truss wrote an article, I think, in the Express, confirming what I've been saying. Right. Simon Danchuk has come out and confirmed that he was told to shut up by the man who became
he was a former MP, wasn't he?
Former MP for Rochdale. And at the time, he was told to shut up. For speaking about this by a man called Tony Lloyd, who went on to become the Police and Crime Commissioner, chairman of the National Labour Party. So we now not in the space of conspiracy theories. This is what actually took place. The Labour Party, especially the higher leaders in the Labour Party, either knowingly or looked the other way, and this was taking place, and it benefited them. I think that's the sadness, the shame of this situation. It benefited them, allowing working class children in the tens of thousands, is not 100,000 plus, to be systematically gang raped over generations was a political currency.
Oh, it absolutely is.
And whatever happens to me, it doesn't matter. This is now out. And the world believes me. The world believes us.
Yes, 100%. And it's brilliant, actually, brilliant work. Mel's wanted to know if you're going to be putting that evidence on X today that you were just talking about.
Absolutely. I have got some family issues to deal with after I finish with you. And then I have got a council meeting to get to at 5 o'clock. So in the afternoon, I will make sure I don't have my afternoon nap, Sonia. I'm at the age where I tend to have an hour in the afternoon, and I will scan all of the documents and open them up, because we've got this far, and I've got the legitimacy I have. Yes. Because I'm not just ranting. I'm evidencing. I'm articulating, and I'm giving you explanations where people think that makes sense. That's another piece of the jigsaw. That makes sense. And this isn't just me picking up on it. This is, I come from this community. I've gone and worked for the government. I've got 20 years of expertise in this, and I found myself accidentally back in this situation. It's not through a desire to want my door kicked in.
But that's often how it happens, though, is that when we find ourselves in a situation like this to me is not a career. This is your calling, right? It's been presented to you. Some big higher power
I agree. I agree
said,
with you.
this is for you, and this is what you're going to deal with, and you're doing it in an exemplary manner. People are just this. We've got so many comments, and it's actually brilliant what you're doing. But one of the things that I really want to address with you is that all of this is being portrayed, not necessarily by you, but by other people, as historic. This was a historic problem from 10 years ago. Is it still current?
Of course, it's still current. Two things. One, these men don't go away. And secondly, the behavior in communities is replicated by the youngers who see what the elder generation does. I think that happens in any community. And in early December, I was approached by a mother in early December. So what, a month ago, if that? And she had a conversation with me, and I know her. She's got 2 teenage daughters. They're 14, 15. She's had to take them out of school because they were being groomed. The grooming gangs now use vapes as a way in rather than vodka and stuff, and they are
moving with the times.
Yeah, and they are targeting young women, not just working class white young children. They are now targeting young girls from the Muslim communities who do not conform to Islamic standards.
Didn't they always, though? Because one of the things that I was told when I've looked into this previously was that it wasn't just primarily young white working class girls. It was also young Pakistani British girls as well. But a lot of time there's such a shame on the culture in talking about things like this. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Within their own communities, horrific. Shabir Ahmed, the ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang, kept quiet, but the reason why he got finally arrested and charged the first time around, was it was his own daughters who were repeatedly going to the police. It was his own daughters who were repeatedly going to the police. And when he got arrested and charged, his wife, because of the shame, went and committed suicide. All of this is kept hidden from you. She drowned herself in the boating lake, in a lake called Alexander Park. I used to take my daughter there to chase the geese around. If you fall in the boating lake, even as a child, the water wouldn't reach the top of your chest. All of this has been kept hidden.
Oh my, I mean, the thing is as someone who made a film called Paedophiles in Parliament, I'm not at all surprised by what you're saying, Raja, unfortunately. And it all seems very impossible until it suddenly isn't. And as you say, this is now whipped around the world. People are absolutely aware of what's happening. Do you think this is uniquely happening in the UK?
No, I've spoken with reporters in France, in Belgium. I've traveled across Europe plenty of times, and the pattern is the same. The pattern is the same with immigrant communities, in particular of a Muslim demographic. So they might be from Africa, they might be, Algerian. There's a whole host. There's a pattern here. There's a pattern here, and you've got to understand the pattern is an overlap of both organized crime, overt racism towards the host community, and an underlying interpretation of Islam that allows them or legitimizes for them the actions of barbaric gang raping of children.
What would you like to happen? Obviously, there's been a lot of kind of sound and fury, essentially signifying nothing over the last few weeks from members of Parliament. They had, they had a sort of vote in Parliament, and a lot of it just feels like PR. Right. And now, obviously, we're now hearing from Yvette Cooper, who has been in Labour so long. I find it impossible to believe that she wasn't aware of all this stuff.
Sonia, let me give you something on Yvette Cooper.
Talk to me.
Evidenced fact. We removed from power in Oldham a woman called Amanda Chadderton. It's been a political campaign in Oldham. She was the leader of Oldham Council, the third leader we removed. Amanda Chadderton, she was stood up in the council chamber and said, you can't say it destroyed their lives, as in being gang rape destroyed their lives. Outraged, I led a campaign. We removed her at the election. Once she was removed as a councillor, she turned up as Yvette Cooper's campaign manager.
See, I mean, I don't even know where to go with this. This is all so horribly incestuous. They've all got each other's backs, right? They're completely compromised. What do you think of what Yvette Cooper said about this kind of local-led inquiry?
Oh, it's absolute nonsense. It's complete and absolute nonsense. I am hoping, and I'm not a Conservative, I'm not a Reform member. If anything, my historical politics were with the Labour Party. And I hope that the Conservatives come back over the next week or so with a bill and present a vote on a public inquiry, because we need a public inquiry. It now isn't about Oldham, it's a national inquiry, and we in Oldham have a responsibility to support every other town and community across the nation that is dealing with this. And me and my small team have pledged that we will support whoever we can, wherever we can, however we can. But there needs to be a national inquiry, and that national inquiry needs to address the underlying conditions which led to this, rather than just, oh, isn't it awful, this happened to this child and this happened to that child.
Right.
We passed that.
Right.
We have passed that. And
Right.
it needs to get to the cover-up. Who was responsible for the cover-up? Because I have named names, and I've evidenced why I've named those names. When you release a parliamentary letter-headed paper claiming Andy Burnham's review was brilliant, and then Burnham himself now
Mayor
is
of Manchester.
Yeah, Burnham himself is now forced to backtrack and admit his review was limited. Well, for the last 3 years, whilst we've been campaigning, he's never said once that was anything wrong with his review.
Now, here's the thing. What really is going on here? Because some people say it's about cultural sensitivity. I worked for this man. He's a northerner, a Muslim northerner, and he swore up and down that this was a nonsense, that there is absolutely no way that the police would cover up such a thing as grooming gangs. And so I didn't believe him, and I always argued with him, and I said that's ridiculous because the evidence suggests otherwise, right? So obviously you have people within the community who, like you say, they want to keep a lid on it, right? Obviously we have that. But then there is that cultural sensitivity, but there is also the Muslim vote. So is it all a contributing factors?
All of it's a contributing factor, including our national failure to deal with multiculturalism and having to face up to the viewpoint, perhaps, that multiculturalism, in the way we perceived it, in the way we promoted it, hasn't been entirely good for us, and it has failed. And we don't want to have that debate. Nationally, those in power in particular don't want to have that debate. So I spoke with a senior police officer, retired now, last week. He sought me out. I met him in a local Morrison's for a cup of tea. And he shared with me how he was the senior police officer in the late 90s and early 2000s, campaigned on this issue, tried to arrest people, and the highest level of the police force intervened and told him, we've got a good thing going on here. We've got these communities on side. Don't let this ruin it.
How complicit are the women in these communities? I'm not talking about the women being attacked. I'm talking about like the wives, etc.
Oh, you've got to appreciate that in many of these families, the women themselves are oppressed themselves.
Exactly.
They are victims themselves, and trying to hold them somehow accountable. In a long list of people who I would hold accountable, second to the survivors would be at the bottom, second, with the survivors being least accountable, I would say the wives and the daughters of these men, because culturally they have their hands tied. It's so, I look at this as a Muslim, I look at this and I see so many young women come forward and say, oh, wearing the headscarf is my choice, or wearing the niqab is my choice, and all the rest of it. And I think, okay, so if it is your choice and it's fine, then how do you, the way to measure that choice is how you react and how you respond to those young women who don't wear clothes like that and don't conform like that. And more often than that, it's very negative. So there's a challenge in our community, Sonia, and and I haven't got all the answers. In fact, I have very few answers, but one thing I do know is, if we do not deal with this, if we do not talk about this, if we don't have the courage and the conviction to address some of this without the fear of being branded racist, and I've been branded a far right racist in Parliament.
Oh, I bet you've been called everything. Yeah. So, I bet.
But where does it take us, Sonia? And we started this conversation where I shared with you my father getting off a boat in 1945 after serving in the Second World War. This is my home. We've got to find a way in which how we can live together. And if we can't live together, where does it leave us? And in particular to the people who look like me, who abuse me and assault me and also harass me. It won't end up well for us. Well, it won't end up well for us at all.
I completely take your point. I was born in Gloucestershire, which is kind of like very white, very Christian. I moved to London when I was 18, and part of the reason I do is because I love living in a multicultural environment. My family is multicultural. My daughter's father is Jamaican, and so I'm very, very concerned. Obviously, that what you often see are people who leap on it because they are racist, but we cannot silence people on this basis, right? We cannot, because what you're saying is the truth. But how difficult? I mean, you must have been like seriously ostracized. I'm sure you've been called everything. Sellout is probably one of the kindest things that you've actually been called.
There's a Muslim group in my town, very closely linked with the politicians in the town, who have openly made reference to me as a gay Christian convert, as a means of trying to incite my murder, because being gay and being a Christian convert in Islam is you can
apostasy. You can't do that. Oh yeah, my goodness.
So, the police refused to do anything. These people posted the front picture of the front door of my home. They published my address online, and Greater Manchester Police
you need to protect him.
The Greater Manchester Police are neck deep in this scandal. And I go back to this, and you raised it. This is my calling. I see it as that there's a higher power here, and I leave it to that higher power to support me and get me through this and get this country of ours through this. And I'll leave it there. You know, if I have a dream of any of this, Sonia, is I can sit on a park bench, have a flask of tea and a sandwich, and hopefully look back and think, when the moment came, I did what was asked of me.
That's right. You rose to the occasion. Before you leave us, just a couple of questions. NJ said, what is your opinion of the Mayor of London? Of course, he was famously asked last week about grooming gangs in London. What are your thoughts about all that?
Oh, come on. How outrageous was it, Sonia? How outrageous was that interaction in the select committee? He does no one any favors. He definitely doesn't do people like me or the community I come from any favors. And increasingly, you can see he is becoming a caricature villain. You know, if Spitting Image still existed, he'd be featured on there. He's a disgrace. The man's a disgrace.
He is. People are very concerned about your safety. Are you concerned about your safety?
I am less concerned about my safety now. It's out in the open than when it was.
Right.
During the darkest days, I was barricading myself in the house, sleeping with a knife next to me. My daughter was 6 years old. The police had put me under house arrest. So they knew what was going on, and instead of just simply releasing a statement saying Mr. Miah has not been arrested as a child sex offender, because that's what the local newspapers, the council-funded local newspapers, ran with a headline claiming I'd been arrested as part of a child sex exploitation investigation. Completely made it up, you know. And everyone else, these gangsters, were following me home, boasting online how they were following me home. I'd been carjacked. It's horrific what I've endured, and it's okay. I mean, I'm not looking for sympathy. I look at it and I think, no, I was meant to be tested this way. I have been tested this way.
It's all part of the journey. It's all part of the journey. You know, I always say nobody breaks into an empty house. You must be doing something of worth for people to want to stop you. I thank you very much, as indeed do many commenters at this moment in time. Everybody, this is Raja Miah. Thank you so much, Raja. Brilliant work. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you so much for
anything at all we can do, just give me a shout. Okay, take care of yourself.
Take care. Thank you.
Raja Miah, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But not an easy journey. He's not chosen an easy journey. But why should he? Why should he choose such an easy journey? And but phenomenal stuff. Respect, says Teresa. Amazing man, says Helen. Raja, thank you, says Craig. Thank you, Raja. Bless you, Raja. Hot. Bless this man, Raja. Rather, I think there's a theme developing here. Thank you, Raja. Top man. Good human person. Indeed. Sid. That's very right on. Good human person. You know, in Trump's America now, you don't have to adhere. Oh, we're not in Trump's America, of course. We're still in Starmer's England, Starmer's UK. He will be upsetting extremists, which is always dangerous, says John. My head has exploded with light bulbs listening to this, says Kath. Maz says, keep blowing. Keep going. Yeah, phenomenal. It's not easy, the path he's on, but I wish him the absolute best of luck. The thing is that the kind of like the path of the truth teller is never easy, and neither should it be. I saw a message earlier that I just wanted to, let me see. No, I'm fine. I did get all the messages that I needed to pick up. I'm going to bring in our next guest shortly. James Bond says, what a man. What a guest. Thank you both. I live in hope. We all live in hope. What I mean, the thing is that hope is a really powerful emotion. If you don't have hope, then you're not actually capable probably of changing anything, because even dire situations, injustices like that. And I'm really glad that he raised up the issue that it isn't just white working class girls who are the target. Because I think that's so important. I think that the other victims of the grooming gang scandal, so a lot of British Pakistani young girls. They've been completely ignored in this. And because they don't fit the narrative, actually, that actually this is an attack on girls and not just an attack on British way of life. It's an attack on girls. Milford would rather be in Hitler's Germany than Starmer's England. Well, I'm presuming that you're not gay or brown or Jewish or any of those things, Milford, right? Starmer escalating Ukraine, wants more war, even World War III. He's a fanatic, said Hector. Ian Fleming was MI6, says Ian. Yes. How do you think he knew all that information? Jan says, think Trump has Starmer by the whatsits. He stopped the Chagos Island deal for the time being. He did, didn't he? And Kath said, come on, people, hit the like button. Hit the like button. We have nearly 1,700 watching us on the live stream right here, right now, consecutively on YouTube, which is absolutely great. And we are, of course, also streaming on X, I believe. Just have to double check that. You never can tell, right? Just have to double check. Well, I can't see it, but I'm sure you all can. So hello to everybody out there in Xland. Hello, everybody. Oh, somebody likes the little Buddha next to me in the background. I like it too. Right. Let's bring in our next guest. X is growing too. Oh, how's the X stream going? X. Oh, I agree. I'm lost. Raja is a hero, says Joanne. Okay. Right. I'm going to bring in my next guest. This is a story that I cover regularly. It's a story I cover regularly because I believe that it is a gross miscarriage of justice. I believe it is an unsafe conviction. I'm talking about the convictions, multiple, of former neonatal nurse Lucy Letby. And I've talked to a number of brilliant people about this. I'm about to talk to somebody else with a great insight. And let's bring him in. Let me just line everything up. You know what it's like, people, when you're doing all this yourself. Just bear with me. His name is Paul Golden. And here he is. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Good morning, Sonia and everybody. It's wonderful to be here.
Wonderful to have you with us. Keeping midwives safe leaps out at me immediately. Tells me you're somebody who may have an understanding of this case, Paul.
I hope so. I have a clinical understanding, but also I'm a parent of children born into a neonatal intensive care unit for 3 months. I might
you have
even
a
begin
Yes, you have a very interesting history. I think it's unique in its own right to approach this case. You studied law, nursing, oriental and natural medicine, which is fantastic. Yeah. Okay. You also studied nursing, then midwifery in the UK. You worked in Australia. You began your clinical career in neonatal units in 1987. I mean, you've traveled around, haven't you? So you have a fairly decent understanding of babies being born prematurely.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, personally, I'll mention, because it's relevant to the case, when people are talking about babies being robust or unexpected deaths, actually all babies are so vulnerable, especially premature and extreme premature. And a baby who's expected to weigh 1.5 kilos or 1.2, actually weighing 800 grams. There's a reason for that. You know, the pregnancy was a challenge for that baby. The placenta probably had some challenges. So I know, just to give the personal thing, when my children who were born at 28 weeks, 1.2 kilos each, fairly robust, a little bit of ventilation support for a few days, did pretty well, had a couple of challenges, including the necrotizing enterocolitis, which means lack of oxygen to the gut and you have to stop feeds. Now, this is talked about a lot in the Lucy Letby case. Not enough, actually, because they kept saying the babies were robust. The main point I want to say with my own children, twin boys, the day they were leaving hospital after 3 months, everyone thought they're very well. They got a chest infection, or one of them did. The one who didn't have an infection picked it up from the one who did, because we didn't isolate that one, and had to be resuscitated, flown by helicopter to an intensive care unit in Cambridge. So these were babies born at 28 weeks at 1.5 kilos. So when we're looking at an 800 gram baby, some of the others were 24 weeks, around that kind of gestation. They might be stable for a few minutes or hours or days, but at any moment they can desaturate.
Right. It's changeable, isn't it? Very vulnerable, very variable. There's so much that I want to talk to you about here, but let's have a look at the lady. Lucy Letby, of course, has been convicted of murdering 7 babies. She's been convicted of the attempted murder of a further 7. She's never going to leave prison. And yet what's really interesting, Paul, is I've been a journalist for an awful long time, and I've never seen so many people who are prepared to put their head above the parapet, like, very known people, politicians, law advisors, even medical people, who are prepared to say there is something wrong with this conviction. And you are one of those. Those. Why did you get interested, other than the fact that you obviously have your own personal experience and you have a knowledge of this arena as well? But what attracted you to it that made you think there's something really wrong here?
At first, before I thought there's something wrong, I thought, oh, another mad, bad person who's doing crazy things.
Right.
Like there have been a few cases in the history. As soon as I started to look into it, I realized that could be me. That could be any of my colleagues, especially nurses more than doctors, because we're not so well defended and not so able to defend often. And in this case, there is a bit of axe grinding by doctors who had lost an employment grievance case that Lucy took against them.
Right.
So they have a motive against her. She doesn't have a motive against any babies. She has complete dedication, but it could have been me, it could be anyone. And that's why a whole bunch of nurses across the UK have written a petition, sent it into Downing Street, saying they're terrified. And if we have fear-based practice, we don't have the best practice for the person in front of us, whether it's a mother, a baby, or someone else.
And I think it's really important you highlight that, because I've also talked to nurses who are absolutely petrified. And there were also nurses at the Countess of Chester Hospital, where Lucy worked, who wanted to come out in her favour in court, and they were prevented from doing so.
And your previous, I was going to say witnesses, your interviewees, Richard Gill, and I can't remember the name of the other statistician. It's
Nigel. Yes.
It's so factual. And in contrast to the case was, I call it magical realism, kind of hypnotizing the jury. And I've worked a lot with the judiciary over decades. I've defended nurses, midwives, doctors for 30 plus years. And it appears there may not be malice with the judge, Goss. There may not be malice with the CPS and the prosecuting KC and the police who put the case together. But it's a perfect storm of when good people do nothing, bad things happen. And they just hypnotize the jury into, unlike with your program, there's factual information with the statisticians, with the neonatologists, with me, with others. That's very clear factual evidence that if that was presented to the jury, they would never have found her guilty. There would be such a strong element of doubt.
Right.
And this case wouldn't be proven beyond reasonable doubt. And the massive injustice was that she had to prove her innocence. No, they should prove her guilt. That was never the situation. It was all about, well, you failed to prove that you're innocent and you didn't call any expert witnesses. She shouldn't have to. And all the other cases I deal with, and there's many cases all the time, they do actually have to show that they're a reasonable, safe, competent practitioner. In a way, they have to prove their innocence. Even though that's wrong, we do need to do that.
100%. And do you feel, though, that she was failed by her defence? She, of course, now has a new defence team and has for the last almost 4 months. Do you feel that it was a failure on their part?
Yeah, because I do expert witness reports. I've been asked by the police in similar cases. In fact, the Constance Martin case, you remember the baby who died and they were on the run, found in Brighton, and she was sleeping in a tent. And because my narrative wouldn't fit the police narrative, I said, why are you blaming a mother? Because often the police are doing this, and social workers, and there's a tragedy, a grieving parent, like Sally Clark case, the mother of 2 babies who died from sudden infant death syndrome.
Remember it.
The paediatric expert witness said this is 1 in 7 million chance, and he was discredited and taken off the medical register. And this reminds us that expert witnesses have liability. So in this case, Dewey Evans is not an appropriate witness for lots of reasons that have been examined by other people, and his evidence is unsafe, and therefore the conviction is unsafe. And I'm an optimist. She can and will be released, and should be, very soon. And we've learned from the Malkinson case, 17 years with a wrongful conviction. Lucy Letby needs this retrial. I think the tipping point is coming, even with the Court of Appeal judges, with your show, all of us raising the consciousness.
Right, all of it.
I think they're embarrassed a bit, and they even referred to Ravi Jairam, the medical doctor in the neonatal unit, as being a bit of an unreliable witness, and some of the things he said didn't really add up. So if any of the evidence does not add up, is unsafe, the conviction is unsafe.
I completely agree with you. The problem is, and we cover this a lot here, is the problems with the CCRC. Now, that may also improve last week because Helen Pitcher, and we talked about this on Friday, boss of the CCRC, has now resigned in the wake of the whole Andrew Malkinson scenario. So
She jumped before being pushed, yeah.
That's exactly right. Okay. I mean, they word it very carefully. I don't need to tell you this as somebody who understands law. You know how it works, right? But do you think that things could improve as a consequence of her going regarding Lucy Letby?
Only if we all take action. And action could be individually talking to each other, talking to members of parliament. David Davis has done a fantastic job with his recent speech, and before the summer recess, he said he was going to look into it. He's even more convinced now after the summer recess, having examined the facts.
Yes.
But here's a unique perspective I have is I challenge the challenger with education and kindness. So the Criminal Case Review Committee, or I've actually complained to the GMC and to the Police Conduct Committee. They've changed names fairly recently. So we have to go to outside bodies to look at things, but they all fail. And they have chief executives and boards that are failing. We saw this in the post office scandal. So what one has to actually do, and I'm inviting anybody to communicate with me, I have to start an action, a legal action for 3 triple civil things: misfeasance or wrongdoing in a public office, breach of statutory duty, and negligence causing harm. And that's against the independent police complaints and against the GMC, the General Medical Council, because they won't act. They have a very high threshold. In fact, it's weird. For example, in the Lawyers Solicitor Regulatory Council, if we want to complain about the barrister in this case or the police, they have a really high threshold before they'll even investigate. With nurses, the Nursing Midwifery Council that regulates nurses and midwives has a very low threshold. They treat allegations as evidence. So the only way to go outside these organizations that are dysfunctional, have heads like the CCRC woman, she's getting paid hundreds of thousands a year for doing a bad job, is to go to court and to repeatedly go to court. So my invitation to anybody watching is contact me. Let's collaborate on ideas. It's difficult to, I can be a litigant in person when it's affecting me. So whether the court will accept the case from me, I'm very familiar and happy with filing cases, including the High Court. Some of them get bounced back. One of the magical things is when you file a case, you get, so the threat of litigation gets mediation. You get other organizations on board talking. So even this is a fantastic forum for legal action that you're putting into somebody's mind. Maybe they'll talk to me or somebody else or take some action.
We must put a contact detail for you. We will put a contact detail for you in the description so people can contact you. Now, for the most part, I think many people tend to agree with you, but there are going to be people saying, no, absolutely not. Emma is one of them in our chat. And she said there is a paper trail, loads of evidence of changing paperwork regarding babies who died. And Emma believes that the problem that we're having with Lucy Letby is if she looked like Rose West, that we would all think she was guilty. But because she's attractive and young, that's why we're swayed. What do you have to think about? What do you have to say about that?
Well, I've heard that from some other sources occasionally. I never considered it. I actually just isn't anything to consider. We've focused on the facts. And the facts are, for example, the insulin testing, straight away, is that exogenous from outside the body or was it from inside the body? And the test itself was so unreliable. I'm testing babies' blood gas analysis, arterial blood, venous blood. The machines need to be calibrated. They're not always accurate. There's better and less better machines. In the case of Liverpool having a better machine, the blood should have gone there. The machine report says do not rely on this, and they have relied on it. That becomes circumstantial, that people like Emma then say, there's so much circumstantial evidence, it all adds up to be a conviction.
Right.
If you look at every part of it, there's nothing.
Right.
And there never was.
There is no sort of direct evidence. Nobody has seen anything, right? And those
Not
who
even
did,
guilt, but
no.
even the babies died of natural causes. That was the definition and determination by coroners and pathologists and the parents and the doctors at the time. Then a year or two later, oh, we don't like her, she's bad. Oh, maybe she did something terrible. Dislodging a tube. One point I'm wishing to make is when a baby desaturates, so the oxygen level's gone down, the alarm goes, you go to the baby, you hesitate because they might self-correct. So you wait a few seconds.
Right.
And we even have a chart.
Right.
Did they self-correct within 5 or 10 seconds? And each baby's got a different parameter that will allow them. So when it's, oh, I saw Lucy standing by the bedside doing nothing when a baby's dying, it's like you can pause, observe, how's the nose, how's the lips, how's the chest?
Right. But it was immediately held against her, right, for following actual protocol.
Yeah. It's not always the baby that has a problem. It's the machine that's alarming for no reason, or it's not picking up the signal clearly. So you observe, you check, you might do a little flick of the feet or blow on the baby, or you have to call big resus and everybody comes. But you're making an assessment, and that human factor takes a few seconds. It could be 1 second, it could be 5.
Right, got you. So you have previously called for a comprehensive public inquiry. What do you think of the Thirlwell inquiry? For those who don't know, a bit of backstory, the Thirlwell inquiry, I think launched, was it last September? And it's at Liverpool Town Hall. And obviously they are only looking at why something like this could have happened. In fact, Lady Thirlwell started off the inquiry really by attacking those who were questioning the convictions, right? What are your thoughts about the Thirlwell inquiry? We're going to get to the truth. How can we?
It's a mixed answer, good and bad. So the good is, I agree with you. She started attacking people, including like me, Richard Gill, neonatal specialists. There was one called Dr. Hall who sat in court every day, ready to be called by the defense. And she's saying nobody's got a proper informed opinion. Nobody heard and saw the case. There are people like him who sat in court. Others read transcripts or the journalist report. So we have a very valid input. And hence I wrote the book. I researched it for a year. The good things that have come out of it is accidental evidence. And this happens in any case I've taken. You get managers blaming each other and saying inconsistent things. So the truth will come out. So when Dr. Ravi Jairam says something, or Dr. Stephen Breary says something, and it's not credible, it's not consistent, it's not having any factual basis to it, you realize that this was relied on in court for her conviction. So that's accidental benefit of the Thirlwell inquiry. But the bad stuff is it's very much the emperor's clothes. If everybody agrees the emperor looks wonderful in this clothes that they're not wearing,
Right.
if you have such a narrow remit for it, it needs to be a wide remit. How and why did babies die then, even before then and after then? Why were the doctors doing 2 ward rounds a week instead of 2 a day? I've never known that. I've worked in probably 30, 40 neonatal units in Australia, New Zealand, the UK. I've also worked in Sri Lanka, India, Vietnam, other countries, Mexico.
So you've seen a very wide range of neonatal care, haven't you? That's interesting in itself. Yes.
In all units. I was in Sweden. I was so impressed by the presence, the dedication. Most units have an amazing quality of love. And that's with people like Lucy, the nurses that support her. Most of the mid-level doctors are there 24 hours. And they've got a great commitment technically and emotionally. And they make relationships with the parents. And when people criticize Lucy for being overly emotional, it's a very incredibly, you're holding a baby who's going to die. Or might, you know, and some of them grow up and come back and visit you. I've actually had, because I'm a midwife as well, I'm sometimes having the children, or including the daughters of the mothers I looked after 27 years ago. 30 years ago.
Wow. I mean, the thing is, people don't realize how deep this goes. I know one of the things that people get concerned about is that we're disrespecting the parents of the babies, but it's not that. I think we disrespect them by not giving them the full truth. That's what I think is a disrespect. What do you think?
Thank you for that point. I totally agree with you, but I go even further. I have not clients, people come to me, I do voluntary work for their defense. And they're so shy and timid, and the rabbit in the headlights, they're like, oh, I don't want to make a fuss. And they don't see the bigger picture is the whole public. So a criminal case is about the whole public. If we don't have a justice system that we can depend on, rely on, and I think we can accept its inconsistencies to some extent, whereas the court seems to say, we've got to be consistent. If we've made a mistake, keep with it. Don't change it. It's like,
Right.
no, if you've made a mistake, as we saw in Birmingham 6, Guildford 4, and all the
Yes.
other, not only the 500 criminal miscarriages of justice that are known about, that Exeter University studied and published about, I go much further and say the regulatory bodies like the General Medical Council, the Nursing Midwifery Council, and others, they have wrongful convictions all the time that have a similar
Ooh.
impact to a criminal one, but we cannot appeal them to the CCRC because they're not criminal. We can only go to the High Court, and the High Court often does a balancing act saying, oh, we know they're bad, but we'll let them carry on.
That's a bind, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's,
they're
I mean,
enabling the bad processes.
Absolutely they are. And obviously part of the problem that we have, and we talk about it a lot around here, is that in England, I'm sure this is all the same all around the world, but this is my experience. In England, when we make mistakes, big judicial mistakes, we are so loath and reluctant to then address them because it seems to be, you know, like this is such a shame on our establishment. And there is that reluctance. Your book that you talk about, by the way, is Lucy Letby, Innocent Miscarriages of Justice. Where is it available, Paul?
Both of them are on Kindle. If you want a more ethical platform, Gumroad is there. And I also...
I'm going to, that's the link I'll put in the description on Road. Yes, please. That's brilliant because I
put a Kindle because it's easy. They're ebooks and paperback.
It's really important what you've done. And I do really appreciate it. So really the bottom line is this deserves a retrial, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It could even be such an unsafe conviction that it could be quashed. But if they started a retrial, a judge would then announce, and the previous judge ignored the warning from the judge who said this expert witness is not credible, we should not rely on him. And he did rely on him and said he was credible. And that's how the conviction happened. So how did Judge Goss allow that? We should criticize judges. There's a God complex with doctors and lawyers, partly because they used to use another language, Greek, then Latin, and they dress up in funny things. And even the judges look up to the doctors too much and revere them. Oh, a judge said something bad about Lucy, therefore it must be true. Lucy could say something bad about the doctors. I made an error there. And it's not true. That's just because there's a God complex of us as the public, and the people that criticize this case are like, oh, but we rely on the doctors, or we rely on the judge or the lawyers. And we shouldn't. We should challenge ourselves, challenge each other. You and I can question, challenge. We can disagree. And this is a beautiful, healthy thing. Because in our families we do it. Why can't we do it in public work?
Exactly. So yes. And a healthy society should be able to question decisions and accept when we make mistakes. That should happen. But at this moment in time, I am deeply, deeply concerned that she's just going to spend the rest of her life just fading away inside without any. And there is enough to look again at this. I've covered enough criminal cases, Paul, to know there is absolutely enough to look again at this as well. What do you absolutely want people to know who may be on the fence a little bit about this before you leave us today?
Focus on facts, not on storytelling. So when the lawyers presented information that they said was facts, was it really? We should always weigh the facts, especially against some opposing facts. Which one is heavier? Which one's more true? Which one's more accurate? What's more reliable evidence? And go with that. And in this case, all their evidence has been discredited. The door swipe going in and out, the complete reverse. It shows a police department that didn't have much money, it was failing, like the hospital was failing. Suddenly it gets millions. The defense lawyers got much more money than, got much less money, 1.5 million compared to 2.5 million for the prosecution. So, you know, they've spun their facts, and we're so used to fake news and spinning as a normal thing. Really focus on facts.
Really good to have you with us. Thank you so much for contacting me, Paul. I really appreciate it. Please keep me up to speed with your thoughts on this as we progress, because I really want to, you know, I want to actually get up to the Thirlwell inquiry because I want to see at firsthand what's taking place there, because it is deeply concerning. And obviously, when you have the sort of gatekeepery type journalists in the mainstream media, you're like absolutely insistent that everything is right. But the thing is, our job as a journalist is not just to insist that everything's right, it's to look at the facts and the evidence. And it is absolutely clear and apparent there is enough evidence there to force a retrial. Enough evidence. Do you think it's going to happen?
I think it will this year or next year. I'm a real optimist that we can have a tipping point and it will come sooner rather than later. And if we look at the post office, they had a proper inquiry, loads of really useful evidence about leadership failings, reputational protection. Same things have happened in this, but they're not looking at it widely enough. They've made a narrow thing of, oh, you know, blame this victim. and made such a victim out of her. So yeah, I'm an optimist. It's going to happen.
Sounds great. Everybody, this is Paul Golden. I will put a link in the description to his book. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Paul. Really appreciate it.
Good luck to you, Sonia. Well done. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right. Yes, Emma, I take your, listen, the great thing about our show is we allow difference of opinion, right? Emma absolutely is of a different opinion, and Emma is entitled to that different opinion, right? In the same way as other people in the comments think that Paul is spot on and right. Katie says, thank you, Paul. Cheers, Paul. Thanks for a great interview, says Steve. You're very welcome. Steve is somebody who informs me a lot to do with the Lucy Letby case. So thank you very much. I think it's really important. When Paul contacted me expressing an interest in the case, I thought, it's really interesting. We need as many different knowledgeable voices on this as possible, because I'm in no doubt this is an unsafe conviction. That is my position. That is my position. And it doesn't make me somebody who dislikes Emma because she has a different position. We have to be allowed, right? Yes, Lisa, he's great, isn't he? Really good stuff. Yeah, he was brilliant. Brilliant, Jasmine. But Emma, not at all, my love. We have to be allowed to disagree, because otherwise we become as bad as all the people that we loathe and dislike, don't we? Because then it becomes a dictatorship. We cannot have a dictatorship. But I do believe that there is enough there to force a retrial. I don't believe she was given a fair trial in the first place. That's my thoughts. Right. What are we going to talk about next? I want to, let me see if I can find this image. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to do this later. I'm going to do this a little bit later. I mentioned Andrew Tate on Friday. I don't think it's a secret. I absolutely loathe and dislike this human being. He is so incredibly horrible and toxic. And if you really want to know what Andrew Tate is about, you only have to listen to Andrew Tate. He will tell you. He will tell you how much he loathes and detests women and what he's done to women for a very long period of time. And not only women, young females, right? And but last week he was all crowing on X. Yeah, our house arrest has been lifted, and he actually said we've won the case. Do you know what? The thing about Andrew Tate is he lies. He's actually lost his final appeal in court. He's now facing 20 years in prison, and he's currently under house arrest, right? It's part of a second case that includes human trafficking a minor, influencing statements, money, etc., etc. Tate and Brand, what a pair, says Stephen. Yes, I have no time for either of them. And obviously, it's very interesting that Russell Brand has come out in huge support of Tate. Very interesting. And no, Squidgy, I don't think he's from Tate and Lyle, the sugar people. No, nasty man, Abster. Yeah, he's a nasty, nasty man. He's also a liar. Yes, Lisa, he can't stop lying. He did film rather a lot of his violence against a minor. Vivian, I believe. Nasty. I don't know the facts, but I get a bad feeling about him. Well, here's the thing, right, Phobal? All you have to do literally is listen to Andrew Tate talk about being Andrew Tate. And then you're like, okay, I'm left in no doubt whatsoever that this is who you are and this is what you're about. That's it. That's who Andrew Tate is. And very interesting today, Ricky Jones is in court. Anybody remember Ricky Jones? This is Ricky Jones. This is an image from what has led to his arrest. And so he's in court today. He's a Labour councillor. He denies encouraging violent disorder. He's pleaded not guilty. A video emerged of him appearing to call for far-right protesters for throats to be, I've got to be careful on Twitter, but I think you've probably already seen the video. And it was at a time when people who were protesting against about what had happened in Southport, against our immigration policy, were just being rounded up and removed from the streets. And he's out there in your face being actually violent. Yep, Dartford, Kent. Martin says he's vile. Is he allowed? What's that? Yeah, saw that at the time, was like, well, yeah. The thing is that this is why people talk about two-tier Kia, because it appears to be one rule for them, one rule for us. But anyway, he's in court. He's in court today. It was on 17th of August. It was organised in response to the disorders that erupted across the UK, as I say, after the stabbing of the 3 children. He was charged by police with encouraging violent disorder 2 days after the demonstration. He appeared via video link in custody from HMP Wormwood Scrubs during a brief hearing at Snaresbrook Crown Court. At a previous hearing at Westminster Magistrates Court, Deputy Senior District Judge Tan Ikram said it's alleged that using a microphone you addressed a crowd at an anti-fascist protest and talking about others you described as disgusting Nazi fascists. You said we need to cut their throats and get rid of them. That's literal incitement to violence, right? So he's in court today. We shall see what happens. But again, it's an ongoing case, and it will be for the judge to decide whether that is an incitement to violence. That is not for me to decide, and it's not for you to decide or anybody else to decide. It will be for the judge to decide, and we shall see what goes on there. We shall see what goes on there. But isn't it interesting, all these things that are happening today? And again, it is the return of the judiciary, by the way, so that's why a lot of this is taking place. Right. What do I want to move on to? I want to move on to this. This is a story that interests me, and I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive into this, people. So bear with me. I want to make sure I've got all my pictures lined up for this. This is to do with Ellen DeGeneres, who I can't help, but I mistakenly, on an almost constant basis, call her Ellen DeGenerate, right? And her name is Ellen DeGeneres. But make of that what you will. And it actually involves, let me bring up some pictures. Let me get some pictures here so that I'm not sort of talking to myself and you've no idea what I'm talking about. PDF. Let me bring these up. It involves Twitch and Alison. That will do. Twitch and fam. That's it. Right. It involves Stephen Twitch Boss. Stephen Twitch Boss may mean nothing to you. May mean nothing to you whatsoever, but it means rather a lot to me, right? I haven't talked about this story on Wake Up before, even though I've covered it elsewhere. And it is the death of Stephen Boss, aka Twitch. And he became very famous for dancing. He's a very, very close friend of Ellen DeGeneres. He was a long-term executive producer on her show. Let me show you an image of him. This is Stephen Twitch Boss with his family. And Stephen Boss killed himself in a motel in December 2022. And the spelling of his name is a bit odd to start with. It's a lowercase t and it's a capital W, as in witch, right? T witch, but he was known as Twitch. It looked odd, but there you go. But he became incredibly famous and he appeared to have it all. Very healthy, happy family, attractive, healthy wife. He'd achieved great goals in a crowded marketplace in Hollywood, and he and his equally blessed wife made videos together, dancing in the back garden, with occasional glimpses of their perfect little life with 2 of their own children and a teen daughter from the wife's previous relationship, but whom we were told was treated like a daughter. They seemed to be everywhere, including a stint dancing together on Dancing with the Stars. They were incredibly popular, and during lockdown they made a whole load of videos together, Twitch and his wife Alison Holker, and they made a load of videos together, like in their back garden, where they're dancing together in great synchronicity and synergy, and everybody was just like, this is a fantastic family. It's so wholesome, such a wholesome family, and we're often led with that, right? And but as I say, he killed himself. Okay, he killed himself in December 2022. So let me talk a little bit about that. First of all, he walked half a mile from his home. He already booked the motel room. He walked half a mile from his home, and he checked into the kind of like £100 a night bargain basement hotel, although very well kept motel. It's like a Premier Inn kind of thing. That's what it is. That's kind of like the British equivalent of it. He was said to have shot himself in the head in the bathroom. He was also said to have looked calm after on his way to the motel. And he checked into room 249 at the Oak Tree Inn in Encino at around 10:30 a.m. on the Monday. He went into his room and never came out, the manager said. At 11:15 a.m. on the Tuesday, the maid opened the door to check on the room. There's blood everywhere. And what was interesting was no one heard the gunshots. None of the staff heard the gunshots. Nobody staying there heard the gunshots. And so there were question marks about that. And as I say, the couple appeared to have it all. He appeared to have it all. Yes, came on. You've never heard of him, but I'm going to give you many reasons why I'm bringing him to you today, and why it's interesting and why it's curious. I think it's interesting. So on his autopsy ruled his death as suicide. They said that he died by suicide on December the 13th, 2022. His wife said no one had any inkling that he was low. He didn't want people to know. Now, that is common with people with depression. They often don't want people to know what they're going through, and they can lead very, very silent lives about what they're going through. Ellen honored his death on social media. And in fact, I think this is interesting. I will forever be grateful that the show ended with Twitch by my side. So let me bring in talk of Ellen before I continue talking about Stephen Twitch Boss. So he and Ellen DeGeneres were extremely close, so close that every time they were together, they actually said this on the last show. They said to each other, I love you. They're very, very close. They'd worked together for years. In 2020, he was made executive producer. He was originally a DJ on the show. And then there was the whole toxic culture of the Ellen show that was revealed during lockdown. And obviously people were saying that the Ellen show was this kind of like toxic mix of every ist and ism going possible. And what was curious about that, of course, is Ellen prides herself on being terribly woke. And yet it was said that she had fostered a culture of racism, of, well, kind of like every ist and ism you can humanly think of, including bullying. She said on his death about Stephen Boss Light, he was pure light. If you knew him, you knew that. If you didn't know him, you saw it. Let's honor him and think about him to one another. Time Warner put out a statement about his death, said that he was a multifaceted talent and integral part of the Ellen DeGeneres show and our Warner Brother television group family. He had the ability to bring communities of people together each day to share in joy and laughter. The problem is it's not straightforward, people, and these things never are they? And so what happened was there was the whole toxic culture around the Ellen show. And the last show that they did together was, I think, the 28th of April, and I think it was then broadcast in May, but it was May 2022. 7 months later, he was dead, right? Now, there's a lot of stuff that's come out recently, and I think it's pretty troubling. One of the things that I think is interesting is Todrick Hall, who you may or may not know also, is also a dancer and is a performer. I met Todrick Hall before. My daughter was a fan, and I met him before. And he has said that the Ellen show backlash contributed to Twitch's death. That's one of the things that he said. People were looking at him saying, why are you still supporting this woman? And Hall speculated that the digital backlash had contributed to the death of Stephen Boss. Well, I don't know, because some really, really weird executives, not producers. No, he was an executive producer, Mel's is an executive producer. But I may have jumped in. Oh, bullying and 3 producers sacked. Yes, Mel's, absolutely. That is exactly what happened. But eventually Ellen couldn't recover from it. And the show was like, heading on its way out. And then it was kind of like, it was put on ice, basically. I think they essentially cancelled it. She jumped before she was pushed. It was those kind of things. But there is a lot that's been coming out recently. So Alison Holker, what to make of her? Alison Holker is his wife. This is her in one of their very kind of wholesome family images of her and him. They were incredibly close. They worked together. They played together. They did everything together. Even to the degree that when she was pregnant, she joined him on the Ellen show to dance, and very much was made of, look, she's like, 7 months pregnant. She's moving like this, which is kind of like shaming every other pregnant mother who isn't moving like that. But anyway, by the by. But Alison Holker is now under the very serious spotlight. As it turns out, her behavior is very much not the crying widow. It would appear she actually, by her own admission, the day after she went back to work. The day after he was found, she went back to work. She actually said in an interview that I watched that she took business meetings the day after his body was found, which is odd. A lot of people have described her as his handler. She's certainly very hard, and I'd say hard-faced. She was in an interview to promote his new book, and she makes a series of stunning announcements about Boss, about Twitch. She said that he left her in a bit of a bind. She actually appeared to be blaming him in the interview, which was all a bit odd. She said she had to let some brands go. She was literally talking about work straight away after his death. She said she had to let some brands go because, this is a quote from her, because what they received was not what they signed up for, right? And that's because what they signed up for was now dead, right? The main act is now dead, and she's annoyed that she had to let some brands go. She's weird. She's weird. And she immediately appeared to go into a relationship and with his friend. And she's now in another relationship with Adam Edmonds, who is a tech boss. But she did a series of really horrendous things, including asking his family, including his mum, to sign an NDA at his funeral. I've heard the recording where she admitted it to one of his relatives. She asked his family to sign an NDA at his funeral. Yes, Marcuson, and that is exactly why I'm going to get round to Ellen in a minute, right? Astonishing stuff. Astonishing stuff. And she said, oh, it's because I want to protect his reputation from his mum, from his relatives. How dare you? How dare you? Shocking stuff. Absolute shocking stuff. She wanted to protect his reputation so much, she's now written a tell-all book in which she claims that she's discovered that he was a drug addict after his death. She said she went into the closet to look for clothes to dress him up for the funeral, and she discovered all manner of drugs and drug paraphernalia. Well, how come the autopsy report was clean? No alcohol, no drugs. Because the thing about drug addicts, certainly before they're about to kill themselves, generally you'd think they'd be off their face or at least have some drugs in their system, right? None. Clean. So this woman, who I find utterly despicable, I've lost any kind of semblance of compassion towards her now. I find her utterly despicable, what she's done. John says, Sonia, you should put people's names up when talking about them. John, it's very easy for you to say that, my darling, but I'm here. I'm literally organizing and pulling all manner of levers, and I'm trying to focus on the editorial. So you're just going to have to adjust to it, mate. Adjust to it. Her name is Alison Holker, and I'm talking about Stephen Twitch Boss. Okay. And anyway, let me get back to this. So she did all of these egregious things, including saying that he had been abused as a child. And I think his family finally had enough. His mum came out, I think on Instagram, saying, for the last 2 years, I've remained quiet and away from the public eye to protect my family. My primary focus has been on healing and attempting to remain connected to my grandchildren. But when I read these dreadful claims about my baby, our beloved Stephen, I realize I could not stay silent any longer. Our family will ensure his name and memory are protected, and we are committed to defending his honor. So I want to go back to toxic Ellen, and a comment that Marcuson just made. And yes, Ellen DeGeneres has actually fled LA to the Cotswolds. I was born in the Cotswolds. She's literally like 7 miles down the road from my hometown. And yes, Ian, I gave him a slap. No, John, bless you. God love you. He now calls me a multitasker. You're a sweetheart. Thank you. One day we'll have producers around here who'll do all of that, I promise. You know what I'm like, people. Anyway, so Ellen has fled to the Cotswolds, but why has she? Why has Ellen fled to the Cotswolds? Because her name is in the frame here. People are wondering about her relationship with Twitch. People are wondering about that. And as I say, they were said to be incredibly close. So close that each time they saw each other, they said, I love you. That's one of the things, right? So people are now wondering what on earth happened to this man. And here's where I think it gets really interesting. So I did have a cup of tea, John. Yes, Rosanna, I saw that. She's back in the US, right? Last week, she suddenly went back in the US. She claims she was leaving the US because of the Trump win, right? So she left in November, arrived in England and the Cotswolds. They've actually bought a huge piece of land in the Cotswolds. Let me see. Yeah. Set within 43 acres of gardens, paddocks and fields, has 6 bedrooms, a gym, 55-foot indoor pool, separate guest cottage, orchard, wildflower meadow, and hundreds of feet of river frontage. And surrounded by floodwaters during a recent storm, but contrary to reports, they were not flooded. But yes, she is now back. She's now gone back to the US, and we don't know why. We don't know why, because she said she left because of Trump. So she's suddenly gone back for the inauguration. What on earth? What on earth is that all about? It's really weird. But I want to just talk briefly about this and why I am concerned that this was not a suicide. I have to show you these pictures, right? So you know me, I go as deep a dive as I humanly can. So I looked at the motel that he went to, and I want to show you an image of the door. Now, I looked at all the doors, right? This is a door of his motel room. I've got it here. I want you to tell me, what do you notice about this motel room door? Okay. Oh, I want a closer one. I need a closer one to show you if I can. Because what is important about this, tell me I've got it. Tell me I've got it. There it is. I did do a closer one. What I think is important about this, so I looked at as many of the motel room doors as I humanly could here. And look, this is Twitch's door. That looks like somebody was hammering to get in there. That literally, none of the other doors look like Twitch's door. That looks like somebody was trying to break that door down. Now, I don't know if you know Sloan Bella. I've interviewed Sloan Bella before, and Sloan Bella does kind of quite a lot of esoteric stuff, kind of looking into the afterlife and everything. And she says up and down that this was not a suicide. And I'm just quoting from her. I'm not saying whether I believe her or not, but she says up and down that this was not a suicide, that actually this was linked to his work, that high profile people around him know what happened to him. They know it wasn't a suicide. And Milford says, who cares? Well, the thing is, Milford, is that I believe that Wake Up is about a multitude of things. We look into crime and conspiracies. We look into miscarriages of justice. We look into corruption. We look into all manner of things. And this is a topic that I think is interesting, because when I feel we're not being told the truth about an international story, I feel that we should look at it a little bit closer. So I care. I care. And seeing as I'm running the show around here, I'm talking about it. And that's the way it goes, yo. Absolutely. And that's it, Milford. And, but I do think it's interesting. I think it seems absolutely apparent and clear to me that, because who else will? Yeah, Humphrey. I agree with that. Maybe the knocker didn't work, said Humphrey. I know, right? CCTV broken that day. Yes. But I do think it's interesting. This is an international story that does actually have some bearing on us, because I don't like being lied to. And I don't like seeing people hoisted into the public eye, like his wife, who are making big, big coins, and by maintaining a narrative that could do with closer questioning. I hate all lies, including this one. Yeah. Hammer time. Wonder if his family's seen this. Yeah, I know. Interesting. How did the authorities not find that sus? Right? I'm glad you all agree. Well, you're not all, but I'm glad some of you agree, because as soon as I saw that door, I was like, something's wrong with that. Something is clearly wrong with that. So I just wanted to raise that up, because this is going to be a story that, believe me, sooner or later will come across you. You will come across it. It will go out into mainstream media, legacy media. People will start talking about it more, start talking about Alison Holker, start talking about Ellen leaving LA to come to the UK, and start talking more about Twitch. But I think that this is an unresolved case. It's pretty remote, the Cotswolds, Morrigan. Yes, absolutely. It does look like he's been hit with a hammer. Milford, yes. But Sloan Bella was absolutely categoric. She said it was basically like some sort of mafia hit. She said he was tied up in a chair and everything. So there you go. There you go. It's poor children, Mels. It's poor children. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just wanted to raise that all up to you. So there you go. And yeah, there you go. And in a new spot, I'm going to call Teach Me Something New. Actually, I've literally just made up that title right there on the spot. Viewer Henk has stepped up to the plate, and I thank him for that. He said, hello, Sonia. Today I was listening to your latest show when you mentioned abiotic oil, and you had no idea what it was. I had no idea. Well, I do, and I can fill you in. Abiotic oil might be abiotic. Abiotic oil has everything to do with the origins of oil and natural gas. Contrary to what our media are propagating for a long time, oil and gas are in no way fossil fuels. After the Second World War, the Soviet Union started a grand-scale investigation into the origins of natural gas and oil. This resulted in a theory which they published around 1953 and was named the Russian-Ukrainian theory on the abiotic origin of gas and oil. And Henk goes on to explain more. I love the way that people clue me up on things. And he said one of the achievements was pressing methane out of rocks under high pressure and high temperature. Methane, of course, is the most simple molecule that exists that can be made from carbon, C, and hydrogen, H. Contrary to methane, oil molecules are gigantic and their composition differs greatly. They contain a lot of different molecules. Are you getting this, people? We have very knowledgeable people watching Wake Up, and I'm so grateful. He said, in short, oil and natural gas are not fossil fuels, but are created deep in the crust of the earth as a result of the natural process. Got ya. Did we all get that? Why would he have gone to the hotel? Oh, is my question. Phone records would probably show why. Rich taboo. So just to go back to that, again, some people believe that he was going to the motel room to see people, to meet people there, but he booked in just half a mile up the road. And it's a lot of it's just improbable. A lot of it doesn't make sense. Yes, Michelle, it's great to know. Cameron said the Russians cap their oil wells when they run dry and they refill after 5 years. Mine is made from baked beans. Got ya. Yes, the Dead Sea oozes bitumen. Bit odd, eh? Isn't oil like the blood of the earth, constantly renewable? Crafty Kim says that. Got you. And also, I'm irritated by legacy media. Alison Pearson, who's tried to recraft herself as some sort of great free speech advocate, well, writing for the Telegraph and being part of a company that is Friends of Israel. But she's a great free speech advocate, but she's also a pusher of fat jabs, as is Jenny Murray. Shame on Jenny Murray, who used to run Woman's Hour for years. They both push fat jabs, and now we are absolutely hearing that hundreds are in hospital with serious reactions to fat jabs. 46% in a month. Nearly 400 people have now needed treatment. What on earth is going on? What on earth is going on? Oh, yeah, that's right. Pharma fat jab shills. That's what they are. They are disgusting. 400 people have required hospital treatment, some with life-threatening complications since the rollout and heavy promotion of these fat jabs. Until October last year, the number of hospitalizations over the 6 years since the drugs first began to be prescribed stood only at 279. And the massive push of these drugs by these shills has resulted in 46% increase in just 1 month. This is just another route to see people off. Humphrey wants to know if the MSM are doing body counts now. Got you. Another reason to keep lazy, said Jay. I'm not sure about this. Listen, all about the pharma money is disgusting, Lisa. It absolutely is. Here's the thing, right? Is that, don't get me wrong, I used to be obese. I've had eating disorders. I was bulimic for many, many years. I understand the difficulties attached with losing weight. You won't find me fat shaming around here, right? Because I understand that fat is an emotional issue largely. So I know it can be difficult and problematic, but there is no easy cure. And encouraging people to take these fat jabs is downright disgusting. Staged, says Morrigan. Could well be. They may well not have taken any of these themselves. But they've pushed them. It's absolutely disgusting and despicable. And then when you see all these professors coming out supporting it, like Professor David Strain, he's an associate professor at the University of Exeter. He runs an NHS obesity clinic. He says these drugs are a breakthrough for obese patients, and they have a good safety profile in clinical trials, but that's partly because trials come with a full wraparound service. Patients don't just get the drug and get sent on their way. They get counseling, monitoring, diet, and exercise advice, which will mitigate the most common side effects. That is what people need. We are all human guinea pigs, says Miss Sleepflower. I hear you. A Freedom of Information request by the Mail on Sunday found that real figures for the dangerous consequences of these jabs could be significantly higher than the medical licensing agency are actually telling us. 8 hospitals in England confirmed they had recorded a total of 71 incidents of patients seeking emergency treatment. It's shocking. What's this new fest? 40,000 homes without water last Thursday to Sunday in North Wales due to major pipe burst. Water boards set up stations to hand out water. Concerningly, food shops shut, making it difficult to get food. Outrageous. Outrageous. Ian wants to know what's Ozempic, the biggest pushed fat jab. Then there's like Wegovy and Mounjaro. They're all at it, these people. Anybody who pushes these jabs is a big pharma shill, and you can tell them that from me. And I'm delighted to see that we currently have 2,154 consecutive viewers on YouTube. We've broken through our own record, people. I love that. I absolutely love that. And just to say, as broadcaster, Piers Morgan once again claims he was duped by the C19 science, right? What role does forgiveness play in all of this? Because I'm so sick of the Piers Morgans of this world. He said, no, I don't want anyone to forget. As I've previously said and apologized for, I was misled by the early scientific guidance about the supposed ability of COVID vaccines to prevent transmission of the virus. That turned out to be wrong, and I was ludicrously over-censorious. Yeah, the problem is, Morgan, you'll do it again. You'll do it again. This is me when I hosted a panel at Jam for Freedom, and I want you to hear what I had to say about Piers Morgan and his ilk.
Narrative. How can you trust them about anything else? And I think that's part of the problem. Journalists are supposed to tell the truth. And if they're not, then where do we go with that? I can't personally forgive any of them, even if Piers Morgan fell down on his knees and begged me personally for forgiveness. I'd tell him to go and do one. Because... And it's really simple why. Because if he leapt on COVID the way he did, he'll leap on the next thing that is designed to enslave us.
And Emma knows that. That's exactly what he'll do. He'll be banging the drum when the next one comes, of course. And that is the reality with the people like Piers Morgan. So he can fall on his sword as much as he wants on this occasion. But people like him, I can't. There's no forgiveness and there's no forgetting. Although, I mean, forgiveness, I talk about that a lot. It's not like I'm here putting pins into a doll of him or anything like that. It's just you can't trust people like him. You cannot trust Piers Morgan. You cannot trust Jeremy Vine. You cannot trust Nana Akua. All of these people and Andrew Neil, Vanessa Feltz, loads of British broadcasters all around the world. I know I'm just talking strictly about British broadcasters. All of these people wanted the unjabbed, ostracized from society, denied hospital treatment. Piers Morgan was one of the absolute worst because he had a 5-day-a-week prime show in which he was able to spout all this nonsense. It was no coincidence that the laughing assassin, Matt Hancock, was on with Piers Morgan when they rolled out the jabs. And one of the first people, there were two people, a man and a woman, and one of them, the man was called William Shakespeare. He's now dead. Make of all this what you want. So, no, we cannot afford to forget because Piers Morgan will leap all over it again. He goes whichever way the wind blows. He does. That is a reality. That is the type of person he is, right? That is exactly the type of person he is. So can you forget? Oh, Piers Morgan should be behind bars, says Melvin. I mean, I think he's disgusting. Thank you, Christine. I really appreciate that. Cameron said actors need scripts. They have no words of their own. I just think he's a disgusting human being. A really disgusting human being. And the way that he mounted his stalker campaign using mainstream media on Meghan Markle was absolutely abysmal. And I'm no fan of Harry and Meghan. Truly, I'm not. I don't like them at all. And I think that they are absolutely part of the censorship of pushing for the censorship of the internet. But there is no doubt whatsoever that Piers Morgan was upset because she gave him the cold shoulder. And this is a married man, but he couldn't take it. He went out for a drink once with her and he then put her into a cab and she went off to meet Harry for the first time. The rest is history, so they say. But Piers Morgan never recovered from it. And he essentially carried out a full-on stalker campaign using a massive platform. It was absolutely disgusting. And he ended up walking out when the weatherman held him to account. He's a disgusting human being. Everyone on TV is a puppet. I see. Is that what you think? I see. Does any big pharma meds cure anything apart from... I got you. I can't read that in full, Nigel, unfortunately, because YouTube have this insane medical misinformation policy, which may well change now with the inauguration today. And I'm still alive, devoid of a moral compass. That's the reality, Ian. He absolutely is. Devoid of it. Right, people, we are closing in now. We are closing in. It's approaching 11 o'clock. And I want to read an email from one of our wonderful viewers. Let me find his name. Let me find his name. His name is Mark from Southampton. Let me read it to you. This is part of our final thought. I thought I wanted to use this. Thank you for writing in, Mark. It's an email about the trials and tribulations that Mark, our viewer, has been dealing with. So he said, "Dear Sonia, I have followed your work for over 10 years, and for 5 of those, I have been stalked by my ex-girlfriend. We were together less than 6 months, and I ended the relationship because she could not stop lying. I had 2 good months with her, and the rest was a nightmare. Since then, she has accused me of everything under the sun, from physically attacking her to stealing money from her. I have not done any of these things. In fact, she has attacked me with, on one occasion, an iron, and she has stolen from me in the time we were together. Her stalking started with her doing silly things like ordering numerous takeaways, but it progressed and got much worse. In October last year, she claimed I had broken into her house and attacked her. It was a lie, but police still tend to see women as the victims and men as the aggressors. And I found myself in a position of having to prove I was not the one stalking her. She claimed I had not recovered from her leaving me. All of it lies. All of it lies. I could not wait to see the back of her. Unfortunately, just before Christmas, I really thought I couldn't take any more, and I contemplated taking my life. Things got very dark, and I thought about things I don't even want to repeat to you. Then on the 27th of December, like a Christmas miracle, everything changed. I was contacted by an ex-boyfriend of hers who had got my details. It turns out she has been doing the same thing to him and others, and he had brought people together to report her to the police. There are 6 victims that we know of in total. I am reluctant to call myself a victim, and I know I don't need to tell you this, Sonia, but people like her are mad, and they set out to destroy your life because theirs is so miserable. With all our reports together, the police arrested her last week, and they are waiting to see if the CPS will charge her. The police say the case against her is strong, so we are all hoping for the best. She has done even worse things to other people, including reporting one woman for child abuse, which was a total lie, and she claimed her ex had beat her and kidnapped her once. She's an absolute fantasist, and people need to be protected from her. I burst into tears when the police told me I was no longer under investigation. I wanted to share this experience with you. You often talk about narcissists and justice, and I have taken comfort from what you have to say, and I thought you would enjoy hearing this. Lots of love, Mark from Southampton. Well, first of all, I want to hug you, mate, because if you've endured that, right, it's just horrible. Horrible. I so enjoyed hearing this, Mark. Whatever the outcome, you must be so relieved to know not only are you not alone, but there is now substantial evidence that she does this as a pattern and therefore is conducting herself in a criminal manner. Narcs always go too far, Mark. Always. They can't help themselves. But 2 things came to mind when I read your email, Mark. One was the brilliant quote that is often credited to St. Augustine, although we don't know if he really said it. But it's this: the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose. It will defend itself. Whoever said it, it's true. The truth does not need to be defended because truth is self-evident. Truth stands strong. It can stand on its own accord and can withstand all scrutiny because you know why? The truth exists and lies are fabricated. The thing with lies, as I have long found out, is they require elaborate defenses to maintain their facade. Let me tell you one big fat clue of a liar, and your ex demonstrated this. If they feel the need to go into overly long explanations or feel the need to get their word in first about how awful you are, they are probably looking to deceive. This also reminds me of the importance of not giving up, Mark, even when it's the darkest of times. If you know you are telling the truth, you must persevere. I know this myself, whatever it is, whether it's dealing with false allegations or pursuing people who have taken something from you, keep going. Like Mark, your breakthrough may literally be days away. The way he talked about how before Christmas he was in such a dark place, he was ready to leave us. And then the 27th of December, it all started to come together. I love it. Yes, Crazy Bunny, it is absolutely Davos. Absolutely Davos, what's going on. It's the ones that use kids as ammo I dislike. Absolutely awful. Absolutely awful. Karma will come, Mark. Stay strong, says Gary. And it just reminds me of some brilliant quotes as well. Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, keep going. There is nowhere else to go. Keep going. Emerge the other side. Mark, please keep us up to speed. Okay. If there's a trial, let me know. I want to know about it. I want to report on it. You are welcome. Shinri, you're welcome. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. That is Davos. Thank you, Crazy Bunny. And also Nelson Mandela, by the way, said it always seems impossible until it's done. It does indeed. And so, Mark, thank you. Thank you for telling us all that. I really appreciate it. I think you're absolutely amazing to withstand all of this. And actually, there is something I don't normally finish a show on this, but I'm going to today if I can find it. If I can find it, because I did mention her the other week, and it's Jenny. Let me just see if I can find it. Her funeral is this week, and I would really like to just mention her. Yes, rest in peace, Jenny Frangiamore. I think I've pronounced that right. And I mean, this kind of stuff I think is really important. She was one of us, right? Let me bring up an image of Jenny. If I can just see it here. I'm sure I've got it. And as you know, I don't normally end on these sort of stories, but I think this actually is important. Although there we go. Let me try that. I think it's important because when you're one of us, one of our community, you're out there fighting for the truth to be told. You can often think that there's no end to it, that nothing is ever going to come about. I met Jenny when I was talking in Royston last year. Absolutely lovely. And I did mention her the other week. There she is, bless her, with Martin. They actually met. They met through, I think, COVID, through truth seeking. Now, let me just read this true love story. Two people came together during COVID, challenging the narrative. They found love. They became soulmates. They first met in 2018 when Jenny was undergoing treatment for breast cancer. She just had an op. They were good friends. They started dating in 2020. They had a great time together by all accounts. Fun-loving, partied, kept positive throughout. Her group all knew she was ill and that she often had difficult times. She always bounced back. She joined in fighting the cause. Sadly, she became really ill after Christmas. She died on January the 3rd. Martin, her family, and her friends, Andrea, Susanna, who has helped me with the mugs, they're all heartbroken, bless them, which is why I wanted to mention Jenny. You know, the thing is that, Jenny, we are going to continue, right? We will continue on. And her funeral is this Wednesday at Woollandsbrook Crematorium Chapel in Hertfordshire, 10 a.m., then 11:30 a.m. at Cheshunt Cemetery for the burial. Bright clothes, family flowers only, donations to Isabel Hospice. And a good friend of mine said that Jenny was a fighter who was always smiling. She's much loved and sadly missed. But you know what? I find Jenny inspiring because she kept going regardless. She had her own struggles, her own troubles, but she kept going. And look at them. She lived her best life. They got together, and I think it's absolutely wonderful, and I love it. And lots of love to Jenny, lots of love to all her loved ones. And as I say, I don't normally end a show on something like that, but I also think it's important to remember people. One of us. Yes. Rest in peace, Jenny. Indeed. So that's it for me for today, lovely people. Thank you for being here as ever. Thank you for all of the wonderful comments. Thank you for all your contributions. I truly appreciate it. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. The world is round, and that's what might seem like the end may well be the beginning. Rest in peace, Jenny. And I think that is the most perfect quote to end this show on. Lots of love to you all. I will see you Friday. Keep kicking ass, people. Going to be a very, very interesting week. Thank you for being here. See you Friday. Lots of love to everybody.